All right, folks, more technical issues. Welcome to another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm-Up Sessions podcast. This is take 2 of episode, I think, 78. And let's pour some batchy. Let's get into this.
No jingle talk this
No
time.
jingle talk. That was right off the cuff. We're talking about how we need it, whether we need a jingle or not. And fortunately, the recorder just stopped recording, or it died. So no jingle talk. We'll save that for another day.
Yeah.
But thank God we have world-class coffee on this episode. Truly world-class.
I mean, I don't know if this is just because it's round 2, but it kind of tastes better, but also it kind of tastes worse.
It cooled down a little bit.
Yeah. It just got so much brighter.
No, I actually think
No?
there's more sweetness coming through.
There's still that like artificial gummy bear flavor on the back end.
Oh,
It's so
100%.
intense.
Yeah. That's the stuff that I don't really enjoy out of naturals. But that all being said, this is a spectacular coffee. Tell us a little bit more. What do we have here?
Right. So we have a coffee from Manhattan Coffee Roasters right here in my hand from Mauricio Shata. Great, good old coffee from Colombia, Tolima. It's tasty. I mean, Manhattan made a whole new category for this coffee alone. Like, you know how they have, like, what are their categories?
Yeah, like rare,
Yeah.
world-class, exceptional
Yeah.
competition.
Yeah. So they have world class, which we've had some of their world class coffee. Now they have world class plus reserved for this coffee. They only got 20 kgs of it.
So it's rare.
Very rare.
And probably those 20 kgs are probably all packaged up in bags. If not, this may be the last bag in the world that exists right now.
Something like that.
There's a very good chance.
Very good chance, yeah.
There's literally a good chance that there's
I
this
tried
right now.
finding it online. Couldn't.
We're holding a gold mine right here on the table.
I mean, we're also brewing on batch.
Let's go. Let's go. Take a world-class coffee that costs an arm and a leg, that there's only so much left in the world, and you put a 50-gram batch dose. Excellent.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I mean, it is great. It is world class plus. It was used.
Should have brewed this on a Mr. Coffee. Anyways.
Ooh, that would have been fun. Yeah. It was used at World Barista Championship. That's
right.
This go around.
Brewers Cup or Barista?
No, Barista.
Okay.
Yeah, because Brewers Cup was another coffee that we were familiar with.
Right.
Was used on there, but this one was, as far as I know, as far as I've been told, it was 6th place.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. That's Mauricio Shata. If anyone's listening, wants to look it up for me.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. Like I said earlier, like this brew is probably not the best. Should have went a little finer, just a bit.
Yeah.
It's close, but it's not there.
Yeah.
You know, it could have a little more sweetness,
Yeah.
but still the brightness and the acidity. It almost, like when I drink it, I almost feel like I'm drinking two things mixed.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's such distinct clarity in it.
Yeah.
It's like the acidity is there. It's bright. It's juicy. It's nice.
Yeah.
And then the aftertaste is almost like, I was going to say like drinking plastic, if that makes any sense. But it has that viscosity. Like it's, tastes like melted, like simple syrup. Like very artificial, kind of gummy bear kind of.
I lost you drinking plastic. I was like,
I know. It's like,
I
it's just
don't know.
kind of, sometimes my mind thinks in very strange ways like that. Like
whatever you thought when you listened to this, just think about the best version of it.
Let's not. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, it's more like the mouthfeel on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess that might not sound very appetizing, drinking plastic.
Yeah. May not be. Anyways, regardless, just take our word for it that
it's unreal.
It's a tasty coffee. To be honest, I would probably prefer the Diego coffee from Manhattan.
Yeah.
Personal preference. The Diego Bermudez has a unique place in my heart.
Yeah.
But it's still good regardless. So it's a treat to have a coffee where drinking coffees that are truly world class.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, if you were to buy the most expensive bottle of wine almost, it's really on that level almost. And to think that it went through the whole process from the beginning of harvest to the cup, and everybody along the whole supply chain had to do a spectacular job at what they do just to get the end cup result that we have right now, just for this podcast. Really. I mean, in reality, it's like really, they just made this for us to enjoy this on the podcast. It's insane. Yeah. And so,
I'm truly fascinated with this coffee. I love it. Yeah. Like you said, Diego holds it like a special place in my heart as well, because it was kind of a mind melter. One of my first Manhattan coffees ever. But this coffee is so complex in a strange way, in my opinion, that I'm like saying stupid flavor, now it's like plastic.
Yeah. Well, shout out to Manhattan for roasting up such tasty and sourcing such a tasty coffee. So that's exciting. That being said, let's roll right into this episode. So we had Bobby from Texas send us over a question that he asked over DMs, and we get a lot of questions, but sometimes questions like this are just so loaded that it's like, I don't want to type up a whole essay, and this actually might be beneficial for a lot of people to just make a whole episode about it. So he says, so I want to ask, what do you think keeps baristas motivated, and what keeps customers coming back?
Yeah.
So let's dive into the what keeps baristas motivated, talk a little bit about customers, and at the end, let's just wrap it up, because I think there are some similarities in there. Yeah. But anyways, what do you think keeps baristas motivated?
I think before you even start with the keeping baristas motivated part, you want to make sure that you hire motivated baristas, if that makes any sense. The hiring process is just crucial. Yeah, it's super important. And it's also super difficult, because there's no such thing as perfect hiring. Turnover kind of happens, and that's kind of part of the game. It sucks when it does. But the reality is there are a few things you can do and you can look for in the hiring process to find folks who you are going to be able to keep motivated. Basically starts with finding folks who are teachable. Yeah. That's a fairly easy one to look for, is like, are people actually wondering? Are they asking questions? Are they just looking for a job, or are they actually like want to pursue something in coffee? Those are good things. But there's also not a very easy answer for that, because I've also hired multiple different stacked or unstacked resumes and had a very varying experiences around that. Sometimes the resume that has the most qualifications is usually not the best one, and sometimes it's very hard to keep those baristas motivated. But on the other hand, someone who's like, man, I'm just excited about coffee and I want to learn more. Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, I think that the difficulty, especially with coffee shops and hiring baristas and having baristas motivated, and then also being in the tension of somebody with a stacked resume who knows everything about coffee may not be a great fit, and somebody with no experience, so nothing, may be the best fit. That throws a wrench in this whole thing. And I think the underlining tone under that is even more so the fact that working at a cafe still is like an entry-level job, considered at least. Yeah. And it still has a very low barrier to entry. Yep. And that causes some difficulties and some pain points for those very reasons. Hiring the most perfect stacked resume candidate may propose some kind of other challenges. Yep. But then realizing that, like, well, if you're hiring somebody who just needs a job just to pay rent, and they don't actually care about the job, that's going to be hard to just motivate them. Yeah.
Well, they'll have a different motivation.
Yeah, and it just may not be reflected in the work that they do. So it's that's the challenging part, is that you really and I would totally agree that to start off with, if you're hiring somebody who's really already motivated, who's passionate about what the job that they're trying to get, that's already getting you a couple steps ahead. There's a big deal, but it's also, and that's the thing, it's really challenging, especially when, it's a coffee job.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's a big one, because a teachable person without any like professional skills can go farther than someone with a stacked, level of professional skills, but kind of feels like they figured it out.
For sure.
So that's, I know for myself, like that's one thing, like I need to continue to grow.
Yeah.
Like, so I need challenges to overcome.
What do you think, which you're now touching up on that, but what do you think, like, you have a team, you're kind of in the management role, whether you're the owner or you're a manager, and say we're not talking about hiring, because, that ship has sailed. You already have a team.
Right.
What do you do to keep baristas motivated? What are some things that you can add to the experience that actually gets them passionate and excited to show up for work?
Yeah. Create a growth plan as a manager.
Fair enough.
And like, what does that look like? Well, find things that already like excite the baristas. Like, I'm thinking of specific people, whether that's as cheesy or as kind of cliche for a cafe as latte art. How can you invest into that? If someone is passionate about certain areas, what kind of tools can you pass on and give to them to grow in that area? Because at the end of the day, it's going to still benefit the business. It's going to benefit you. It's going to continue just growth. It's going to basically prosper growth there. I'm thinking of like even Emily, like Narrative right now. Like, she didn't have much coffee experience when she was hired. Now she works for Onyx Coffee, the importing company, and works at Narrative. Like, to me, that's exciting. Like, what can I do to further equip her so that she can continue working there and here? Because actually her role there is helping me as a manager behind the bar, running a cafe. So it's those kind of elements, like creating a plan and a growth plan. And then in order to do that, you have to get to know a barista. So that means as a manager, like, how often are you checking in with baristas? Like, we actually do scheduled one-on-ones. Like, we have team meetings. Like, those things are important just to understand where people are at, And everyone, like, there's no such thing as someone just like, skyrocketing the whole way through. There's ups and downs. So your goal is to be there the whole time. Like, whether it's someone is just like growing and blowing up, or someone slumping. Like
100%. I think, that's a very valid point, that it's kind of an up and down experience. And I'm just going to steal this right away from Gary Vee, which he talked about, like, his hiring approach, and which is a little different because he's in a completely different industry. Well, one thing I do appreciate is that those one-on-ones, like, he still does. He has like 1,200 employees. He still will schedule quick little touch bases with everyday employees just so he can kind of keep tabs on them and kind of get a feel as to where people are at in their life. And he mentioned something where he said where he had one person who was working for him, and she was like, Gary, I want to take your spot at Vayner. I want to work up and work my butt off to be able to replace you at some point and carry this company forward. And then 5-6 years down the line, all of a sudden, when life experiences changed and all this stuff, and all of a sudden she was like, actually, on second thought, that's not really what I want anymore. Anyways, he had a lot to share, but the point of that was that, like, at different stages in your life, as you're working at the same job, there's your needs and your desires and your motivations are going to fluctuate. And how do you keep in touch with them, be connected with them enough to be able to know what are the things that they need right now in their life? And that's going to change whether, all of a sudden, whether, you go off, you get married, or, stuff happens, stuff changes in your life. You need to be able to be in the management, I think. And unfortunately, I've never managed anything, so take it with a grain of salt. But be in touch enough for you to be able to adjust accordingly to what people are experiencing, whether that's in their skill set, in their personal lives, everything.
Yeah, 100%. And like one who has been in management, everything you're saying is like I've actually seen executed well or not so well. So you're 100% right. Like those are very, very big key elements. And one of the things within getting to know your staff or your baristas is understanding like what are some skills and what are some values that, or what value can they bring to the company, and then seeing that one that benefits the company, benefits you, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that they're flourishing in that area. I mean, one person comes to mind is Reese. You remember Reese from Makeworth. He was just a barista, cranking it out, worked at, Woods, moved to Makeworth, just cranking it out. Then we realized that he had a desire to bake. We're like, you should bake some stuff. And he ended up one time baking things for a Christmas party. And we're like, this is fantastic. Yeah. Like, what can you do? And all of a sudden, he became the lead baker at Makeworth at one point. So it's like seeing those things and being able to champion people in those areas and allow them to just prosper. So, but that also created a lot of value for the company. Imagine now, at that point, Makeworth had a in-house baker.
Yeah.
I
think that's, I think there's like on both sides of the spectrum. I think in management, sometimes management fails to see those opportunities, which creates, doesn't really create an opportunity, a drive for the barista to take a hold of those, of those opportunities and leverage their skills to be able to add to the company. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think, as management, I think if you're able to see those kinds of things that people are gravitating to, have a knack for, or can facilitate certain things because they're passionate outside of just pulling shots in espresso, I think that's huge. And actually, that's going to benefit everybody across the table. The barista is going to be way more motivated, way more inspired. But then in management, at the end of the day, this could not be for everybody, but something I've noticed is that what management really wants is people to start solving problems and start getting into places that they want to do, and so that they can help the company advance even more. Yeah. And that is 100%. In my opinion, I think that's lacking from the employee standpoint, of course, from management as well. But if we're talking about from employee standpoint as a barista, I think being able to just step up to the plate and say, oh man, nobody's doing this. Can I just take this over and just run with it? Yeah. And I guarantee you, management will appreciate you for that. Hopefully. Hopefully they should.
100%. Yeah. It's much easier to just pour gas on a small flame rather than basically try to start a fire with wet wood. Yeah. You know what I mean? So if you see something that's already burning, keep adding gas to that, because you're going to actually help fuel that fire, and therefore it's going to be way easier for you to even manage a group of employees that are already taking ownership and are self-motivated. Yeah. Like, you just got to get the ball rolling. And that's where, again, going back to what we said earlier, those one-on-ones help you keep track of that and that regular check-in. Again, like if you're a manager and you're trying to get your baristas motivated, remember that you being in touch on the floor and off the floor, making that space where you can work besides a barista and see how they're doing and be able to check in there, but also to create time and space to where you can say, okay, where are you at? Both are important,
For sure. And that's to keep baristas motivated and work in general everywhere. It takes work. It takes having a vision. It takes looking into the future. It takes knowing and understanding and all this stuff. So
that's what I would say. I would say that would be the final thing. Like, the three things that I would mention would be that too. That would be the third thing. Yeah. Vision casting. Yeah. Like, is the owner or the manager continually reaffirming the vision of the company and casting that vision to the employees and bringing examples to the barista and how they're executing on the vision? We just had a staff meeting and I said, y'all, these are the things that y'all are crushing at. This is the vision of narrative. This is what hospitality is paramount means. These are prime examples and how it looks like. We're still talking about those examples.
You can't state that enough.
Yeah.
No, you just cannot state that enough.
Because then it makes the barista feel or the employee feel like they're actually creating change, and actually there's more meaning to it than just, oh man, just pulled a great latte.
And at the end of the day, if your business or your cafe, your coffee company, coffee roastery, if you can't facilitate that and there is no meaning to what you're doing and there is no why or there is no heart behind it, an idea and big picture, then I don't think you can expect that from baristas.
No.
You can't expect them to be motivated. You can't expect them to run after something that's so beyond just being a barista. You know, like it's just you're asking for too much, especially, you know, if you're paying the minimum wage, then that just adds a whole layer of complexity and you're just asking for too much, you know. And at the end of the day, I think you know, you're
100% right. Now I'm thinking,
I'm like, man, there's so many things I could say about running a company and all this stuff, but that's that. But there's also, there's a quote. I'm gonna butcher it. It's either I think it was by Simon Sinek, I think, but maybe not. He says, where leaders lack, I think, clarity or lack vision, employees lack or the people lack commitment.
That makes sense.
It's either when leaders lack vision or clarity. It's one of them. But you can use probably
will
both.
Come from vision. Yeah.
That the people lack commitment, and to me that has stood out so much because it's very true. It's like, what are the people going to grab onto?
Right.
What are they committed to? Who knows what?
Yeah.
Showing up every day at 8 a.m. Well, they can show up anywhere. They have a million places to show up in the world, to be honest. They could leave and, go live in Indonesia if they wanted to.
Yeah, totally. I think what also could happen, I don't want to open up a whole new can of worms here, but what could happen is you'll see a barista actually take so much ownership of a place that they'll redefine the place. So if you're not propelling the vision, either someone will step in and propel it for you, which could be dangerous or could be very beneficial. Depends on how you look at it, right? But that could very well happen. And I've experienced that as well in places. So, or
they leave and start a cafe down the street and you get wrecked.
Yeah.
Anyways, what keeps coffee drinkers coming back?
Yeah. I think the consumer and guest question is also very interesting because it's not much different. It's similar concepts from a different perspective.
Let me preface this with saying that because on this product, we're more specialty geared and we drink these world-class coffees. At the end of the day, the majority of your customers showing up to your cafe could care less about your world-class Marie Chata.
Yes, 100%.
Which is a hard truth to swallow.
Yes, 100%.
Anyways.
Yeah, these type of coffees attract a very specific niche guest. So I and that's part of the solution, I think. If you want to maintain a guest base or a coffee consumer base in your cafe, you have to understand what your guests want. That's not as simple to execute because you have to invest a lot of time in getting to know your guests, being present, asking those questions, having conversations, knowing your community, like if your whole community just loves just loves a specific drink and you don't have it, there may be a reason like why you're not getting your guests come to your cafe but are going to the cafe next door. Go ahead.
Or understanding not only what they want, but being able to bring more value than what they're actually paying for.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when somebody shows up and buys a $9 pour over or, a $7 latte or whatever it is, what they're actually saying is that to me, this latte means way more, is way more valuable than $7.
Yeah.
And therefore I'm choosing to show up here to pay $7 because it means it has more value to me. And that could be that they love the people there.
Mm-hmm.
They love the baristas. They love the atmosphere in your cafe. They love how you make the drink. They like the flavor of the drink, which is more probably down the line. They like that you're quick. They like that you're there on your way to work. All of these things, they at the end of the day make a decision, say it's worth it for me to go there.
Yeah.
When you don't provide enough value for them, then guess what? At some point they're gonna wake up and say that is not worth the $7 that I'm paying, and it's worth it way more for me to make that at home.
Yeah.
And this is just another caveat. I'm just going to throw it in there. It's a can of worms. But by value, I'm not just saying lowering or raising the prices of your drinks.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
That's actually a smidgen of it.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the things that you said also go into this category of, like, one, it just makes me think, I don't know if this makes sense to you or the listeners, but the reality is, like, we love pour overs, right? We go into a cafe and we grab pour overs. And if I would have had to, like, kind of create a cafe over just my preferences, it would probably not be a successful cafe.
Yeah, 100%.
But my preferences are still important, and I will still implement them into this model.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I only drink a few mochas. That doesn't mean mochas aren't tasty. And doesn't mean that I can't make a mocha with these values that I have. Mm-hmm. Like, mochas can be bomb and exciting and awesome, and they have a guest base that is going to be fascinated with them. Yeah. And you can make them with your values in place. Just because I like a pour over also doesn't mean, like, I don't need to serve batch brew. So that's what I mean by getting to know your guest base is when you're bringing that kind of value, you're also bringing in what they're already familiar with to that. So when someone's coming in and wants a batch brew, I have it. But then I can also say, hey, I have these coffees. Yeah. I have this shata on pour over. Yeah. And this is why you would probably be fascinated by it.
Yeah, there's... man, in the conversation of what keeps customers coming back, flavor, I think, is not quite as high as we want it to be.
Yeah, that's true.
For the majority of your customer base, you need to figure out what all those other things are for them. We're kind of running out of time, but Edwin Martinez, who is on the podcast before, he's the owner of Onyx Coffee Importers. He went out, I think, he has a TED Talk. Go listen to that TED Talk. It's from like 10 years ago. He took a survey from outside just asking people why they show up to cafes, and coffee was like number 4. And to me, that's really eye-opening and was a very big learning experience. Even though we want it to be number 1, that's just not the reality. And if you keep fighting people for that, you're going to lose. I'm sorry. You will lose.
I mean, we know people who have.
Yeah. And this is where we can, as we land the plane, I think there's a common thread here. Because I think that if you can get baristas that are motivated and that feel cared for, that feel seen, that feel pushed to go further and pushed in their skill set and pushed in their knowledge and understanding, all those things, that will bleed over, and that behavior will actually be reciprocated into your everyday guests. And that is where I think things are really powerful, because then now your baristas are approaching their guests the way you approach them, in the manner of, I need to take care of these people and hear and listen to what they're looking for, and how do I supply that and offer that. And that's, I think, is where there's a lot of value.
I mean, as simple as this sounds, it's pretty profound. It's just being kind.
Yeah.
Just be kind to people, right? Be kind to your baristas. That's one thing, taking care of your baristas. but also being kind to your guests. Like, I think a lot of the times we forget how the cafe space is like almost like a place of refuge for many people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a place to connect while they disconnect from other things. And just that little attitude of kindness, like no matter what they're drinking, no matter what flavor experience they're having, it tastes so much better.
For sure. Yeah. At the end of the day, we're all people.
Yeah.
Whether, you're working behind bar or you're showing up to the bar. We're all people. We kind of want the same thing. At the end, being kind goes very far. it just goes ridiculously far. Yeah. So, last thoughts? That's it.
I think that's it.
That's it. Well, folks, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening to the Coffee Roaster Warm-Up Sessions podcast, friends. If you like this, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Leave us a tasty review if you enjoyed this. If you think somebody else should listen to this episode, give that thing a share. But that all being said, thank you so much for listening. And remember, reflect what's good.